Thank you for letting us know that. Hi, I'm Gloria Smith Cisse, and I am the chair of the Diversity Council for the Gift or Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, US. And this is our difficult discussions and diversity conversation that we have every month on the third Saturday of each month. And the while we talk about, the title is difficult discussions and diversity, I don't believe that we've ever had a difficult conversation. I think every conversation has been um, intentional, intentionally inclusive, um, and just it's just they've just been really good conversations, and I have enjoyed being here and being a part of it and learning. So as a an offering of the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, we record these conversations because they use them as teaching tools and make them available to people who might not otherwise be able to participate in these conversations. Now, just like every other group we ever um, take part in, including our families, there are guidelines. There are things that expectations that we have about the people who participate in these conversations. One, this is a safe place. So that means that there will be no attacking each other. It doesn't happen here. But we will take the time to learn and practice being comfortable with our discomfort. So we don't use any form of violence, none of those disconnecting habits, right? We do not talk over each other. We, I know that there's a long list of things, but I don't remember them all today, and I'm not gonna try to remember them all. But we ask that we're always polite here in this space and understand that this is an opportunity for us to talk about the things that need to be talked about. Neb Akmos Neb Pethera is our co-chair, and he doesn't always turn on his camera, but he turns it on when it's necessary. But I really want everybody to know um, how grateful I am to have Neb as my co-chair because did y'all see what he did? He's so funny. Because he is an awesome, awesome, awesome co-chair of our diversity council. And and he has so many wonderful things to say. I want to also acknowledge Judith because while Judith is not a chair of this conversation, this council, she's always here and she's always got something wonderful to add to the conversation. And actually, today Judith is going to lead our conversation. Judith will tell us a little more about herself and the topic and get us started. Hey, Judith, I'm turning the microphone.
Ta-da!
All right, tell us about you and about your topic.
Okay, well, I've been around since the Stone Age, having done my basic week in August of 1978, and I became certified. In those days, it was reality therapy in March of 1979, but I knew of Glasser before that, in the earlier in the 70s. So that's why I say I've been around, since the Stone Age. One of there's a couple of things that over the decades have not changed. And one is the concept of all behavior is purposeful, and that we always choose what we do in order to meet a basic need. And that's sort of the underpinning of the topic that I wanted to talk about. which is fear, the foundation of oppression, suppression, and depression.
Mm.
And I have oppression is unjust or cruel exercise of power or authority. Suppression is put down by authority or force, subdue, to hold back, to keep from being known. And depression, I veered from the dictionary because depression is a feeling. And in choice theory, we have the concept of total behavior. So depression is one wheel on the total behavior car. The other wheels being what we're doing while we're feeling depressed, what we're thinking while we're feeling depressed, and how depression shows up in our physiology. So what does, how did I pull all of this together? So we have quality world pictures of ourselves and the world around us. These are very powerful. This is our ideal world, how we want to be seen and how we want the world around us to look. And I will make efforts not to do too many asides. It's very tempting. It's very tempting. But if I do ignore the asides and just think about the main points. So we have our quality world pictures, our ideal of ourselves in the world and the world around us, and everybody in that world around us. But what adds to all of that is what is our needs profile. In other words, how strong is our need for love and belonging? How strong is our need for power, our need for freedom, our need for fun, our need for survival? And when we understand our needs profile and our quality world pictures, then we can see where the fear comes from. Because fear is our body's way of letting us know something is not right based on our view of the world. So it could be my spouse or my friend, somebody is not doing what I want them to be doing. It could be I'm not doing something I think I should do. We all have those. It could be, and this is not an aside, but in 2022, it's a political year. So it could be that, I don't know if things in where you live are the same in Oregon, but I swear every 30-minute program has 20 minutes of political ads and 10 minutes of content. And the political ads are stacked so that candidate A is on saying, I'm wonderful. And candidate B comes on and says, candidate A is not wonderful. And then candidate A comes on and says, candidate B is not wonderful. And you get to do that through all of the people running for all of the whatevers that are going on in your area. Hopefully you do not have to deal with that. I read a lot more right now, probably will until November 9th. Just because shouting at my TV does not help. Nobody changes because I yell at my TV. So that last was an aside. So when we take a look at our quality world pictures and our basic needs, we can see if we have a strong need for love and belonging, we're going to have more pictures of people, of organizations, of involvement with others. We're going to not only have more pictures of what our ideal relationships look like, we're just going to have more relationships. If our need for power is higher, then we're going to have more of those pictures of our being in control, of our being, first, if not, hopefully first, but if not, way up there on the scale. And power has two aspects to it. It's personal power, where I'm in charge of me, and I'm in charge of matching my quality world pictures, and I have, and I can satisfy that. But there's also power over. And when we look at oppression and suppression, that's power over. That's somebody who has a high power need, and they, for whatever reason, are not able or willing, or maybe it's even know how to meet their power need through personal responsibility. So they meet it through oppression or suppression. And underneath that is a fear. So if I see myself as important in the world around me, and those of us who have a high power need like to see ourselves as important, it just comes with the territory. But there are many ways to be important that do not include oppression or suppression of others. As we're growing up, though, we learn that what our most effective behaviors are in getting our needs met. So you have this in school, you have bullying. So bullying is a way to get your power need met as an power over somebody. And if you are successful at bullying, then you go into adult life thinking bullying is the best way, or maybe for you, the only way you can get that need met, because you never learned growing up how to take personal responsibility for yourself and to meet your need in that way. So in Choice Theory, the book Choice Theory by Dr. Glasser, he devoted an entire chapter on why we choose misery. And if you read nothing else, read that chapter. I've read it more than once, because when I am looking at my own life and I'm going, why are you doing that again? Kind of thing, which I have, I'm 81. So I've had many years to do that to myself. And I'm not happy with whatever it is I'm doing. I go, okay, all behavior is purposeful. What is it that I'm wanting that I'm not getting? And what's going on here? Because this is not who I am. I have a quality world picture of myself as being kind and compassionate and caring and all of those nice things. I do not have a quality world picture of me being shrewish. And yet I can do shrewish really, really well, because I used to do shrewish all the time, because it actually got me what I wanted, I thought, until I looked at the broader picture and I realized, well, no, it really isn't working as well as I thought. And then I was like, okay, but why am I doing this? And so one of the stories I tell when I'm teaching is, when I was in my 30s and I worked in child welfare, I was called out in the middle of the night, literally like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because some young children had been left alone, and I was taking them into protective custody. And it was on a street that had no sidewalks, and had a little ditch along the side of the road, and I fell, and I sprained my ankle, severely sprained my ankle. But I went through the whole thing, got them placed, and next day wrote the report, went into the office, did the court hearing, all of those things. I was in significant pain. My ankle swelled way up. And then it was like, went to the doctor, blah, 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 blah. The upshot of it is my son is not at home. He's deep sea fishing. And there I am. I'm running out of food. I cannot drive. I can barely walk. And a friend of mine calls, very, very good friend, and said, I'm going to the store. Can I get something for you? And what do you think I said? Gloria's shaking her head. That would be correct. I said, no, I'm okay. No, I wasn't okay. You know, that's just an example of how we actually oppress, suppress ourselves, because asking for help for somebody with a higher power need is not easy. And initially for me, it was just not okay. It was, you know, it was a sign of vulnerability. It was all kinds of negativity around asking somebody for help. So in the Why We Choose Misery, one is draw people to us so we don't have to ask for help. Excuse us from acting and possibly failing, to help us gain power and control in a situation. And what I'm finding among my friends right now, who virtually everybody I know is dealing with depression, is helping them manage their anger. And because there's a lot that's going on in the world around us over which we have no control. And when we don't have control of what's going on around us, we don't feel safe. The challenge is safety is a myth to begin with. There is no such thing as safety. When the TSA started going through everything and you know, taking nail files and nail clippers and things like that, my brother, who was big into martial arts, said, but they let you keep your pen or pencil? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, do you know that you can kill somebody with a pencil? And I'm like, you can do more damage with a pencil than with nail clippers that are like this long kind of thing. So, you know, so that really brought home to me the myth of safety. There is, you know, anyway, that now I'm going to see, I can so easily go off here to something.
We call that parallel process. So keep going. You're teaching us and practicing something for yourself. So you're doing, go ahead, take care of it.
So there's something else that's going on right now, is the myth of certainty. Well, it's not right now. I was raised to believe if I went to work for a company, especially if I went to work for the government, it was like a job for life. I had all this secure, all of this stuff. No, in the 70s, 80s, all of that went by the wayside. So even more so, there is no certainty, because there are more things that over which we have no control. Now, I think there's a debate over how true that is versus we know more because of the internet and social media and all of those things. Whichever it is, it still is the same information. There's a lot of uncertainty. And when there's uncertainty, we feel vulnerable. And when we feel vulnerable, we're more apt to feel fear. And if we feel fear, we're more apt to oppress, suppress, or depress. Something else that's going on is The loss of self and place in the world. For me, it was retirement. I mean, at one point, I had 4 or 5 contracts. I worked 7 days a week, all of those kinds of things. Then I retired. Well, I'd also been raising my grandchildren. They grew up and left the house, you know. Now what? Now who am I? What do I do with myself and my time and everything? With the pandemic, people lost their place in the world. Their world changed. The certainty went by the wayside. And there are many people who tried to keep hold of certainty. Like, if I just hold on tight enough, then I will be certain that this is how my world is, and this is who I am in this world. If that's where you are, I invite you to look at where you can find certainty within yourself, because certainty outside yourself is one of those other myths. And if you truly want to manage your fear, then you need to find your own internal sense of certainty, your own internal sense of safety. One of the things that I have come to realize is that, and part of this is because I've lived a long time, and all of my life has not been roses or a bowl of cherries or, you know, whatever nice thing you want to say. I've had some really nasty, horrible, awful, unpleasant, traumatic events in my life. And here I am, almost 82, on Zoom, talking to people around the United States, several of you in Georgia, but maybe not all of you. Sharing with you some of my life lessons, hoping that they will be of benefit to you. Maybe some other bad, nasty, awful things will happen in the future. Who knows? There is no certainty. There is no guarantee of safety. What I do know is that it makes no difference what happens. I've survived a lot. Some of you have survived as much, if not more, than I have. We are all okay. We're all here. We're all functioning. We all have people in our lives who love us, who care about us. And the number one person for that is ourself. And for many people, it's a higher power. So that's in order to deal with oppression, suppression, and depression. We really need to go beneath that. And what is it that we fear? And is it real? Because many of our fears have a base in reality, but they're not real in the moment. So I had something fancy I was going to say to end this, but I think that's really, you know, take control of your fear. It is there to alert you that something may, and that's the operative word, something may be wrong in your life. Something may be out of balance in your life. It doesn't mean that it is. And to stop and take a look, is this real? Am I truly at risk in this moment? What is going on here that reminds me of a time when I was at risk, when I was in danger? How can I move past this upwelling of fear? How can I take ownership of it? How can I have it work with me and for me instead of against me? Because when we let fear rule us, that's when we oppress others, we suppress others, and we depress ourselves. So that was how it came back to me.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. And it's a discussion. I mean, these are just my thoughts, and it's a discussion.
That is a wonderful topic. That's a wonderful topic. And I really like the way you kind of wove in the basic needs and yeah, and with these ideas of oppression, suppression, and depression, especially fear. A whole lot of stuff was going on in my head, dude. I was trying to make notes. And one of the things I thought about, and I'm just gonna drop it in here to see what you think about it, or if anybody else has thought about it. But you know, when I think about those people who bully sometimes, I wonder if in their quality world they actually have a picture of themselves as powerless. And so in order to compensate for that feeling of no power, they bully other people or they oppress other people. Um, Yeah, but anyway, so I just wondered about that because it also would be kind of connected to that idea of, and I may have missed, may not have interpreted what I thought I heard you say accurately, but you talked about vulnerability, and I see and how vulnerability is linked to fear, and all I thought of is the ANS, the autonomic nervous system, gets activated whenever it doesn't matter if it's real or perceived, and then people do the same kind of things like bully, like get ready to hurt somebody or run from something or whatever. So those are just a couple of things that came to my mind as I was listening to you, and I just wanted to kind of drop them in the conversation.
See, I go back to all behavior is purposeful, and in that moment, it's the person's best effort to match a quality world picture, and beneath that, to meet a basic need.
Okay. Okay.
So if I am being a bully,
Mm-hmm.
there's something that I want, and I think bullying is going to get it for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would say the person does have the quality world picture of being first or powerful, whatever, and they don't know another way of doing that. I mean, you can go back to, I can go back through when I'm teaching this, I talk about Hitler
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody can sit there and say, oh, Mother Teresa was all about love and belonging. Not entirely. You do not set up this vast organization because of love and belonging. That you need to have a strong power need in order to pull things together, to organize, to, which is not a bad thing. People say, oh, having a high power need is bad. No, it isn't bad. What becomes bad about a high power need is when we say, you need to make me feel powerful, which is an oxymoron because you can't make me feel anything. But a person that has a high love and belonging need, they can become needy and clingy and, actually drive people away. And yet we would not say somebody with a high love and belonging need is bad or harmful, except that you can smother your children. I mean, all the basic needs is the underpinning of our personality, I guess I would call it. And every one of the basic needs has a plus and a minus to it, if you want to look at it on the scale. When my aunt died, And we went in to clean her place up. She had a whole wall of cabinets in her dining room filled with not Tupperware, but like Cool Whip and margarine containers. They'd all been washed. They all had their lids. When would she, I mean, it's like she did not need all of that, because she had in the kitchen another cabinet that had the stuff that she used. But given who she was and when she grew up, she had a high survival need. So you never threw anything away. She came from the you never know when you might need it.
Wow.
I mean, you know, so that's survival. I have a friend who, she's better now, but she had $5,000 in savings, $500 in her checking account. And if her checking account dropped to where it might go to $499, she freaked out. She stressed out over, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless on the street. I, being a single mom, was like, oh, I get my check in 3 days. I can go to the grocery store and get some food to last my son and me until the check comes in. And I'll write a check and it won't have cleared the bank until the other check is deposited. I mean, who has the higher survival need? You know, so I mean, you can just go, you know, play with it.
Yeah.
Play with it. Look at yourself and where do you see yourself on that scale? What are the quality world pictures that you have that are most precious to you, that you cling to, that are important for you to match? And I'm here because one of mine is I need to be useful. I need to be doing things. And, you know, I'm retired, but just hanging out with myself 24/7 does not do it. So but there's a discussion and I see all of these muted people.
Muted and cameras off.
And muted with cameras off, yes.
I really would like us to entertain this idea of whether a person who is acting out might be doing it. And I'm trying now. I'm gonna think about it a lot. I'm gonna think about it a lot now, Judith, this whole idea of people who want power. Maybe they see themselves as powerful and they don't have the power. Maybe I'm just kind of mixing it up, but I really think of them as like weak and
I would ask them what's their biggest fear and see what they say.
And see what they say.
Yeah, because
That
I
would be an
think
interesting question.
that's
Yeah.
underneath everything is what their biggest fear is. And if they will tell you, then you've developed enough of a relationship and trust to have a conversation.
Have a real conversation with them.
Yeah.
All right. So, anybody else have any comments, any questions about fear and the fear of uncertainty or the lack of power? Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Oh,
go ahead, Nip. Oh,
No.
Hold on just a second, Rhonda.
No, I can wait. Go.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Yeah, there's that fear of the unknown. A lot of people experience the fear of the unknown. They don't know what to expect, and it brings in a lot of uncertainty. and all. And 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 it can lead to self-doubt too, and all.
Head to the bone. Is that what I heard, Rhonda?
My phone ain't ringing this time. I don't,
It's not your phone.
not this time.
I would confess, but never tell on yourself.
Okay, Rhonda has a really interesting ringtone, and we chuckle about it all the time. All right, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. I really like that point that you made about there's no real certainty, not in things outside of us. Because I remember those days when it was like you get a job and this place is gonna be here forever and you're gonna have a job forever. So yeah, so that kind of really sparked some things for me too. Go ahead, Nep.
I like this idea of fear and oppression. And if you could talk some more about how fear leads to oppression, I would appreciate it.
So how I view that is just going back to all behavior is purposeful. So there's something that I want that I cannot make happen myself. And I start, and if, especially if I grew up with this being told that I'm entitled,
Mhm.
excuse me, that I'm entitled, that I'm special, I have a high power need, and I can't get it for myself, then, and I'm other oriented. I don't expect that I have to do all of the hard work to get something because I've been raised with privilege, I guess I would say it that way. So then you end up with people who take advantage of or oppress or look for ways to make other people do whatever for them. And just looking back at slavery, you have people, I mean, I don't know what the plantation owners' quality world pictures were specifically, but just looking at their lifestyle, they expected to live a life of wealth and prestige and privilege. And they could not manufacture that on their own. They could not match it on their own. I don't know that any of them tried because that would make them less than because of the entitlement. So if you have a quality world picture of yourself as being entitled, then you don't go out and hoe the corn. You don't go out and pick the cotton. You have other people do that. And if within your culture, it has been accepted to enslave people, then that's, and I was going to say easy, but it's where you go. And the reality is human beings have enslaved people long before Africans were kidnapped and brought to the United States, England, the Caribbean to be slaves. I mean, it was what was done centuries ago when you went in and you conquered some people, then you took their healthiest men and women and they were your slaves wherever you took them to. So there's a level of acceptance of that as being okay. That goes back, I mean, Neb, you talk about inherited trauma. I mean, if you look at slavery, you can go back to before Christ and find more than one example of that. I mean, that goes way back in early, before the Bible. I mean, so when you have a practice that has centuries of acceptance, because really it was accepted practice, it makes it even easier to engage in it again. And when you see that the benefits you get, which match your quality world pictures, and you cannot see how you would have those quality world pictures met if you did not have the enslaved people doing your manual labor, then it's not even a conflict.
Can I say, okay, for instance, if we look at the concept of that trauma, that intergenerational trauma, we can also look at Europeans who were themselves enslaved by other Europeans.
Yes.
The so-called serfs. The only difference between them and the kidnapped folk from Africa was that they could not be sold apart from the land, but they had practices like prima nocta, that is, the owner or the lord of the manor could take your wife and have first night with her. And so then there's this epigenetic trauma there, but which we could look at as being transferred when they got away from that. And then they have people of their own. And the other piece is, do they see the horse as being enslaved, or did they see slaves as people or as simply tools? So the question becomes, from a systemic point of view, because for instance, I've been to a few places in Africa, like Gorée Island, and you go to Gorée Island, which is off the coast of Senegal, and it was one of those so-called slave forts, dungeons, castles, but right next to it is a Catholic church. And so the people who were about to kidnap hundreds of thousands of people would also go into the church and pray, because they saw their soul as good. So they did something with that sense of oppressing others that met their needs, because they could also say to themselves, these are not human beings, just as the horse is not human, just as the mule is not human. They are merely tools. So the question from a reality therapist point of view may be, what particular needs are being met when you do these behaviors? Is it in fact to change some sort of picture that you have in your head, or is it merely to see yourself as empowered by wealth?
So I go back to all behavior is purposeful. And so that the behavior of seeing other people as less than human is a behavior. I see that as the behavior. And that is the behavior I choose in order to be able to move on down this road of kidnapping and enslaving. I mean, you can go back to, many of the Catholic churches are built on pagan sites.
Right.
You look at the Christian calendar, much of it is a way of suppressing pagan high holy days. I mean, and you have the current Pope recently apologizing to members of the First Nation about how the Catholic Church treated them when they came into Canada. I mean, you can go all through history and find ways in which we pretzel our thinking in order to make what we're doing okay. Because what we're doing helps us match a quality world picture that otherwise we would not be able to match. There's a study done, and if I was Neb or Gloria, I would have looked it up and written it down because they do research better than I do. But I remember seeing a program about it, and I can't remember, it was like Harvard or Yale was a school, and what they were testing is how people who have a, I'll call it a moral code to act in a certain way, can be diverted. And they were looking at World War II in particular and what happened in Hitler's Germany. Why did you have people who actually were friends, have friends who were Jewish, turn them in, etc. And what they found is that there were people with in this study, because in the research they were doing, what they had is they had somebody on the other side of a screen wall kind of thing, who, if you pressed a certain button, they were, you know, like if I was the person, I was told so-and-so would get an electric shock. And so people would resist pushing that and resist, but the person overseeing it kept upping the ante in terms of what's going to happen to you. You know, this is really helps them on the, you know, if they just learned how to be whatever. And, you know, all of the, we'll call them mind games that other people play on us in order to try and influence our behavior. And the number of people who ended up sobbing and apologizing, but still pushing the button, even, and they would hear the screams and they still pushed the button because of the influence, because the information coming in from the person overseeing it. And so I've sometimes wondered, you know, if I was in a place where my choice was I would die, or my granddaughters, great-grands now would die kind of thing, or I would do something to somebody else, what would I do? At what point might I choose to act in a way that it right now is anathema to how I view the world in order to survive or protect who I have and love and care for in my life? I am not putting that out in terms of the people who kidnapped African Americans and enslaved them here. All I'm saying is that we all have a point at which we will choose to die, or we will choose to act in a different way in order to survive. And where is that? Mine has changed over the years. Where I am now at my age is very different than where I was when I was 30. And it's, you know, and there is no right or wrong answer here. Part of this is, how do we figure this out? In Roman times, in Greek times, in Egyptian times, you think of Alexander the Great, you think of Genghis Khan. They went out and they conquered territories. They took the people in those areas that they conquered and they enslaved them. And they moved them. You know, they did not just enslave them right there. I mean, you have the feudal system in Europe, but then you have historical records that in Rome, they put Christians in the Colosseum with the lions. You have the gladiators, and you fought until you killed the other person or you were killed. And we have that as our history. And that does not mean it has to be our history going forward, but we cannot move forward unless I will use the term, embrace uncertainty. We find our core certainty. We examine our core values. We don't just assume we have them. If we have a particular spiritual path, we look at that path. How does that serve us? How is that supporting us in the life that we have now? Where are we assuming personal responsibility? So I have friends that say, God will take care of it all. Well, okay, that's their belief. And if that works for them, if that helps them get through the day and manage challenges, then good. That's a belief they need to keep hold of. If they're like, why did God do this? Why did God let that happen? That to me, and this is within my own thinking, is like, no, you haven't just left it up to God, because now you're questioning God's decision. So, and again, there isn't a right or wrong. It's part of it is the curiosity, bringing curiosity in. And, I know, Gloria, your program works with a lot of people with a lot of challenges. And I would just be asking them what they fear. Where on a scale of 1 to 10 is fear? 0, I have no fear in my life.
Yeah. And
10 is, I have
sorry.
lots of fear in my life. I mean, I would not say 0. And, I mean, I'm not at a 10, but I would not say 0.
Yeah, it's very interesting to look at people and to think about the basic needs. This is really a very interesting topic, this whole notion of fear. And because I guess I'm thinking about it is fear of having and fear of not having, right? And so having the power or not having the power, because they both create a kind of drive or a kind of people are activated to do something, right? But it's just really, and now I'm going to be thinking about it the rest of the month, Judith, and until we get to our next conversation.
Just one last one. There are years ago when I was working Child Protective Services, I sat down with Bill Glasser and I said, I think that there's a little red world. I think people make decisions based on what they don't want. And he said, that's not, he didn't say that's not what I teach. He said, that may be how you see it. However, for every what you don't want, there is a want. And when we're talking to people about what is it they want, what is their plan, we always ask them to phrase it in the positive. Instead of saying, I don't want blah, blah, blah. Well, what is it that you do want? And that's what I go back to, because I've had the same thoughts that you're expressing now, is that, there isn't a little red world. It's that the negative, what I don't have, appears to be more powerful, appears to be stronger.
More attractive.
But that doesn't mean there's not the positive. It just means we don't know how to manifest the positive.
All right.
Something more to add to your thinking.
Yeah, no, this is really good because if I feel powerless, then it's very likely that I want to be powerful.
Right, I can't
the-
feel powerless if I
Definitely.
don't have the
That's right.
positive picture of being in power.
In power. Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. Great, 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 great. Thank you very much, Judith. I know it took us like what, 4 months to actually get here because you were originally supposed to speak in July. And but we're here and it
We
happened.
are.
And
Thank you all very much for listening and chiming in.
thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to the conversation?
I'd just like to say thank you. That was a presentation that causes a lot of thought and very, very interesting. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank
Yes.
you, Ned.
Good
Yeah,
job.
it was great discussion and it gives you a lot to think about.
Good job, Ms.
Thank you,
Judith.
Mrs. White.
So
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. All right,
That's
everybody.
my first time I've done this one, so I really appreciate
And
the
hopefully
feedback.
not your last. Hopefully.
I
not.
practiced on you.
So thank you all very much, and we'll see you next month.
Okay, have a good one.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.